Welcome to the Manoa Career Center's second virtual graduate schools fair. I'm Kay Jernigan, and I will be the moderator for today's educational panel session. With me is Brent Fujinaka, who will help monitor the Q&A portions of this session, along with Thomas and Jenny Chow, who will be assisting with backend logistics. The Manoa Career Center is here for students and recent graduates. We welcome you to virtually meet with a career counselor after the fair for further assistance with graduate or professional school plans, resume and interview help, and planning your next steps. Just a few housekeeping items. This session will be recorded to share with students or alumni who were not able to join us today. Anyone interested in viewing the panel session with subtitles, please click Live Transcript, show subtitles, and you should be able to view the subtitles at the bottom of your screen. This is a virtual graduate schools fair, and the purpose of this event is to provide UH Manoa students the opportunity to gather information from representatives regarding admissions, program highlights, and financial aid. We will start the virtual fair with an educational panel session. Panelists from different graduate schools or programs will share information on 3 areas: why graduate school, tips for applying to graduate school, and tips on financing your graduate degree. Panelists will address each topic, and if time allows, we'll open it up for Q&A after each topic is presented. The second part of the fair, from about 10:30 till 12, will be our virtual booths or breakout sessions, which will consist of individual schools or programs holding their own Zoom meetings to meet with potential students or alum and share about their specific program, and hopefully some time for Q&A. For this educational panel session, if you have a question, we ask you submit your questions in the Q&A section only. Do not use the chat function, as questions or items may be missed. And please wait your turn to have your questions answered. Keep in mind that all questions and answers can be seen by all attendees. So we'll go ahead and get started with our first topic. The first section, or the first area, is why graduate school. And we have University of Southern California School of Engineering, University of Hawaii at Manoa, Myron B. Thompson School of Social Work and Public Health, or Office of Public Health Studies. We have University of Hawaii at Manoa Marine Biology Graduate Program. And we have University of Hawaii at Manoa Economics. You guys can go ahead and get started. Why graduate school?
I'll get started. Aloha, everyone. My name is Mark Nakamoto, and I'm the coordinator for the Marine Biology Graduate Program here at UH Manoa. I've also had the pleasure of being an academic advisor for undergraduates. So I've seen from both sides of the equation, the admission side and sort of the preparing for admission side, of the power of a graduate degree to really affect a student's life. So when I work with a student and we talk about why graduate school, I usually find there's roughly about 4 categories of reasons why you might want to go to grad school. They're not mutually exclusive. You may have several of these things, but I usually think about them in terms of careers, either starting a career or advancing your career, competition or competitiveness. In some cities or in some fields, a graduate degree may help you to be more competitive for a job or a raise. In some cities, even, they say that the master's is the new bachelor's in some cases. 3, sometimes there's amazing opportunities for you to go to grad school. If you were to win a prestigious fellowship or scholarship like the Rhodes and be able to do your graduate study in a different country, that could be an amazing opportunity for you personally or professionally. And finally, I usually talk about the intellectual curiosity aspect. If there's something that you as an undergrad just really felt passionate about and really wanted to go deeper into, grad school might be a great way for you to do that. So in my portion, I'll be talking about one aspect of the first category, the careers. So the power of a graduate degree to really allow you to change careers. So whether you attended college right out from high school, or if you took a break and came back to college, it can seem kind of stressful to think about, you have to pick a major, you've got to do your internship, and above all, everyone tells you you have to find out exactly what you want to do for the rest of your life. Um, Most majors in college, though, don't match up exactly to a specific career, which is great. So with your undergraduate major, there's a lot of different fields that you can go into. On the flip side, though, there are some careers or occupations where they do want you to have a very specific type of background. So if you want to become a doctor or a dentist, you have to go on to graduate study. So this idea is not a new issue. There are a lot of master's programs out there for what I call career changers. So a common example a lot of people think of is you do your undergraduate work, you work for a couple years, and then maybe you go back to get an MBA. But this works in a lot of different fields. So I once worked for a post-baccalaureate pre-health program. So that helps people who maybe did a bachelor's degree in a non-science area, English or history or politics, but after a few years, they decide they want to go back to grad school to prepare for a career as a doctor or a dentist. In my own case, I did a science undergraduate degree and really thought I was going to be a science researcher or a doctor. But by the end, I really kind of didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. So I worked for a couple of years and then I went back to graduate school for education administration because I had decided that I wanted to become an administrator, an academic advisor at a college. So the degree program I picked strongly encouraged internships, which was amazing, and they helped with appropriate placements. So by the time I left graduate school, I had both, some coursework under my belt and internships on my resume. So I was ready to get my first job right after undergrad. I mean, right after grad school. So this is just a pitch. If you have questions about planning for grad school or are thinking about grad school, definitely talk with your academic advisor or a faculty member in a field that you had a good experience in about your plans to go to grad school. So now I will turn it over to the next panelist.
Thanks, Mark. I think you definitely set us up nicely with some important things for us to keep in mind when it comes to why graduate school. So aloha, everyone. Welcome. I'm Michelle Tagorda-Kama. I'm an academic advisor with our Office of Public Health Studies in the Myron B. Thompson School of Social Work and Public Health. And so why graduate school is such a great topic area, and we all go to graduate school for various reasons, and so Mark really highlighted some of those key ones to keep in mind. One of the ones I wanted to touch upon a little bit deeper that Mark had introduced is this this calling for maybe this creation of new knowledge, being able to contribute to a field more deeply in another way, to be able to gain some skills, some new competencies to really further your knowledge, to be able to contribute and work in partnership with your faculty. So my background is in public health, and so as Mark mentioned, there's different avenues or opportunities out there to pursue in graduate school. So for a little bit of my story, I wasn't quite sure what different fields existed other than becoming like a doctor, a nurse, or a dentist. And so health for me at that time was very narrow. But it was through meeting with academic advisors that I was able to expand my understanding of different health opportunities, different health careers, ways to work in health in different ways. And so public health was one of those fields where I could work with community, focus on prevention, be able to think about the social justice of health in different ways. And so through that exploration, I was able to find the right fit in terms of a potential career and graduate program that could allow me to give back to my community in different ways. And so that's another reason why folks might go on to graduate school is there's a calling, there's something that's driving them. And now more than ever, when we think about working in this pandemic, living through this pandemic, trying to find solutions for us to address this issue that's impacting us globally, that could be a calling for you as well. Why graduate school might be something that you want to gain more skills to be able to be part of the solution when there's an issue that's impacting not just yourself or your family or your community, but might be an issue that's far-reaching outside of your immediate communities. And so it's good to really spend some time to reflect on what your strengths are. And graduate school can be able to can be that opportunity for you where you can build on those skills, build on those strengths. And graduate school has been one of those times for me where I really felt my best, because you had a chance to really work with your faculty and you felt like you were gaining the skills and knowledge and working together on those issues, where it's a little different from when you're in undergrad. You know, you're there for a different purpose. I think in graduate school, you really have that opportunity to partner with experts in the field who are doing amazing research, who are doing amazing service to the school and to the community. And then you work in partnership with each other to really, for yourself, gain skills, but also that confidence to know that you as a future professional or future academic are able to do that too, to be able to have that opportunity to give back in different ways, to gain your skills, to develop your strengths even more, and ultimately find your niche and how you want to give back in different ways. So also a little plug for folks who are thinking about public health or thinking about other opportunities for you to give back. I would get connected with an academic advisor or a faculty member, as Mark mentioned, who can help guide you in that way. I think mentors are essential when you're thinking about grad school and beyond. I'll pass it over to our next panelist.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cami, or Camelia. I am the Associate Dean for Graduate Programs at the University of Southern California, specifically in the School of Engineering. And thank you so much to Michelle and to Mark for all of that insight, because I definitely echo that. And I think that you touched on many really good points about going to graduate school. Kind of speaking specifically for a STEM field, engineering and computer science. One of the things that you can probably see right now is the demand for engineers and computer scientists are so high just globally. And so, you know, if it is something that you're kind of interested in doing and sort of contributing to a lot of solutions to global challenges, just as kind of Mark and Michelle touched on, and just kind of being part of solutions to improve quality of life, if that's something that you're interested in, definitely I encourage you to kind of look down those paths. Lots of times, students that I've met really kind of, even if they didn't major in a STEM field as an undergraduate student, many of the students I see majored in physics or chemistry or biology, even economics. And then when you go into grad school, that gives you that opportunity to either specialize, so you can specialize in that field you are studying as an undergraduate student, or you can diversify. So recently, I have a student that I always really adore, because he actually came from University of Chicago, and he came to USC. He was a chemistry major, and then he was just really passionate about clean water. And so he pursued a program in civil engineering in water and waste management. And then after he graduated, he's actually working in a lot of developing countries to kind of help build their water systems. As you know, probably many parts of the world don't have access to clean water. And that's where he really found his passion. And so that's kind of what I encourage. I think that Mark and Michelle touched on that as well, just kind of really finding where your passion lies. and just kind of finding a route to that. In addition, I think too, for those of you that are really thinking in terms of a longer commitment, if you ever want to teach at a university level, it is really important that you do have a graduate degree. We do have a lot of students that, they just really love research, and then they will apply for PhD programs, and that's a commitment. It's about 5 to 6 years, but most institutions, if you're admitted into a PhD program, it is fully funded. So that's kind of one option that, is a valuable path as well. So if you're really passionate about a certain kind of research, or that you just really like to be with possibly students and teach at a university level, that is another path too, to kind of go into the PhD, which seems a little bit daunting to some people, but there are a lot of opportunities for that as well. So yeah, I think that's kind of all I have.
I think I'll go next. Hi, everyone. This is Nori Tarui. I'm a professor of economics and a graduate chair at UH Manoa. So one way to think about graduate school is that it is an investment to get you to a place where you won't be able to reach without a master's or PhD studies. Right? And there are costs and benefits involved. I think the previous speakers did a very good job talking about the benefits, right? The benefits come in various forms. The costs might be more straightforward. Costs might include tuition, but students might pay for tuition on their own. Sometimes they get scholarship, and sometimes they get graduate assistantships to support their study. If it's graduate assistantship, actually, what's nice about it is that it covers tuition, but it also covers living expense, right? That you'd need to pay for anyway, even if you don't go to graduate school. Yeah, I guess as Mark mentioned, the benefits can be in different forms, right? One is the pursuit of knowledge. If that's what you're interested in, to learning about how the world or societies work, a graduate study would be probably necessary to enhance your knowledge on that front. But in addition, sometimes for specific career objectives, you might really need the skills and the perspective that you can gain through a graduate study. And in some cases, you can pursue both objectives, like learning about the truth, pursuit of knowledge, and career essential skills. And also STEM might be one example, and economics is another example. Increasingly, it's a STEM discipline. And so nowadays, there's increasing demand for economists or researchers in many places, including private industry and government, who can not only apply like data science skills, but apply them to solve like real world problems, like real socioeconomic issues. Like you can see that Amazon, Google, and those companies are now hiring people with not just master's, sometimes PhD in economics and other related fields. So costs can be straightforward to estimate, right? The tuition and living expense and so on. The benefits, I would say that those might be very individual specific. Right. And I think the keyword that Camilla mentioned is perhaps important. I think it boils down to passion, right? If that passion is big enough, then the benefits would be big, and that would easily compensate for the cost that you need to incur for your 2 to 5 years of graduate study. So that's about what I wanted to add. Thanks.
All righty, thank you. Panelists, if you could just stay on because we will have some time for any questions that the participants or attendees may have. Or we do have some time, so if there's anything else that you want to add. I personally enjoyed the stories. So thanks for sharing the stories, even if it's personal stories, as well as I know, Cami, you mentioned a story of a student going through the process. So that's great. And then I also, I think, Michelle, you mentioned the mentoring faculty advisors. I think it's important as you go through graduate school. But any questions? So attendees, you need to post it in the Q&A. If you would like, you can, I believe you can raise your hand if you want to actually speak it. Okay, I see no questions. You guys did a great job. Oh, wait, something came in. The question is, what else can you do with graduate school besides becoming an assistant professor or professor? I know another panelist did answer. However, if anyone on this panel or topic, if you want to answer it live, go ahead.
I can kind of speak to that just from kind of a Master of Science and an engineering perspective, but many students actually pursue an advanced degree, not necessarily to teach, which obviously that is a possibility, but many of them do that to kind of increase their earning potential. So in engineering specifically, we usually see, as kind of Mark pointed out, we usually see kind of an increase of anywhere between $17,000 and $25,000 in terms of an increase when students are engineers and they go into industry to work. So as Mark kind of mentioned, the master's kind of is sort of a new bachelor's, especially in certain fields, because certain industries are changing so quickly. So that is a really big benefit in doing that. And then while I'm on that topic, one thing that I kind of should throw out just in terms of going to graduate school and why a lot of organizations do actually help employees with tuition assistance because they support their staff, having that advanced knowledge. So that is one thing, sometimes I've met students, and I was one of those people, that after you graduate, you go, maybe I'm just going to work, and then I don't want to do any more school. But a lot of organizations do kind of support you to work full time and then do the program part time. So that's a really nice option as well. So.
Yeah, I'd like to add a little bit too. I think when you're looking for graduate programs, you want to think about ones that are maybe geared toward the practical field. So maybe there's skills that you want to gain from these graduate programs that'll help you work in the field, so outside of academia. So in public health, if you want to get a master's in public health, you'll gain some skills and competencies for you to be able to work in the field outside of higher education and outside of research. So if folks want to go ahead and work for like nonprofit organizations or Department of Health or different governmental agencies, getting a master's degree will allow you to open up those opportunities for you. So like a big example, I work with my undergraduates in public health is in order to become an epidemiologist, students would have to go on to get their master's in epidemiology. And then that opens up a lot of doors outside of being a professor, outside of academia, that you could use those skills to do a lot of work in the field. So I think, thinking about which graduate programs would be the best fit for you in terms of if you want to stay in the academic route, continue to do research, or if there's other practical programs that are out there for you where you gain some skills and competencies to work out there. So as we're part of the School of Social Work and Public Health, the terminal degree for social workers is the Master's in Social Work. So another example of being able to get a graduate degree for certain professions as well.
Great. All right, we have another question. Cami mentioned going for your PhD, and I was curious about if a master's is necessary before PhD, and what is the main difference between the two degrees? I'm referring to a science field.
Okay, yeah, I can answer that one live. It's probably easier. For many schools, many institutions, they will accept an application for a PhD program after you finish your bachelor's. But the important thing to note is that generally for a PhD program, they will look to see that you've had some research experience. With a PhD program, it is quite a commitment, and they want to see that you understand what research involves, because for our students anyway, it usually takes them about 5 to 6 years to complete the PhD program. So they want to see that. A master's isn't necessary. I can kind of speak from my experience. Many schools do find it a benefit if you already had a master's degree. But for us anyway, it's not a necessity to apply for a PhD program. And in terms of the differences, I would say, for master's programs vary significantly. So master's programs at some institutions can be kind of a stepping stone to a PhD program if it involves some research aspect. And then there are some master's programs that are kind of purely you're taking coursework. And for those programs that are purely taking coursework, those are generally designed for students that intend to kind of go on a professional track. So, I'm going to get this core coursework and do this for a year and a half or 2 years and then go and apply that to working in industry. So that's kind of the differences. The PhD, as I said, the reason why most institutions will fully fund the PhD students is because you're working really closely alongside a professor or in a lab, and you're committed to doing that research for that period of time. And you're going to have to obviously defend your thesis and do a qualifying exam. So there is quite a lot that goes into the PhD program than the master's. So I hope that answers your question. And yeah, in the sciences, I'm kind of representing engineering and computer science, but for the sciences, it's likely quite similar. So.
Okay. Just to remind attendees and panelists as well, I noticed that there are some answers being typed in as well, and you should be able to view the typed answers in Q&A, and these are from other panelists as well. So I think we do have some, maybe just a time for one more question, if it could be answered live. And I'll go ahead and go to this question. It says, do you see a lot of students with a degree in one major switch to a different PhD major? And how is that process? Anyone? I know some of the other questions have been answered typed, but this is Mark. You want to? Oh,
I could take a quick stab at it. So it
okay.
may depend really on the field and like how different it is. There are some sort of interdisciplinary PhDs where it might be possible, depending on your original degree, to go into that field directly with a PhD. In others, though, they may expect that you have a very specific kind of background. So for our program, we have no specific major expectation, but you do need to have enough of a science background to be able to, again, hit the ground running and start to do your research. So we have recommended coursework, but not necessarily a recommended major. So, if in the course of getting your political science degree, you had a great interest in biology and you just took a bunch of biology courses, we don't even require a minor, but you just happen to take a bunch of biology courses, you might qualify for our degree program. But again, it really just depends on what you've done and your background. It's going to be pretty individualized as to whether you'd qualify for a PhD if you don't have a sort of connecting degree. You may need some sort of post-baccalaureate work. They may ask you to start in the master's instead and then transfer to the PhD. But there's a variety of ways you can make it work. You don't have to have the exact match.
And then for USD, we have a lot of students that apply for engineering PhD programs that don't have an exact match, as Mark said. So if they're applying for a PhD in electrical engineering, it's not necessary you had a bachelor's in electrical engineering, but we have students come from physics, for example. And so as long as Mark said, that there's something related, there's a connection there, you have the foundational experience and the background to be able to succeed.
So let's go ahead and move on to the next topic due to time. We will hopefully have some time for general Q&As after each topic. So attendees, don't worry, we will get your questions answered, whether it's live or typed. So we'll move on to the next topic. We are featuring representatives from Middlebury Institute of International Studies at Monterey, Claremont Graduate University, University of Hawaii at Manoa Graduate Division, University of Hawaii at Manoa, Spark Matsunaga Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution, Graduate Certificate in Conflict Resolution. And we have University of Hawaii at Manoa, Earth and Planetary Sciences Graduate Program or Department of Earth Sciences. Go ahead, folks. And you are talking about tips for applying to graduate school.
Okay, I'll go first. Hi, my name is Ivy Mu, and I work in the graduate division at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. UH Manoa is a comprehensive research university, and we have 89 master's degree programs, 58 doctoral programs, and 5 professional doctoral programs. As the previous panel had mentioned that the PhD is more about the research, but professional doctoral programs are about the career advancement. So grad division actually process the applications for majority of our graduate programs, but we don't process applications for law school. We don't process applications for med school. We don't process MBAs and master's degree programs in the College of Business. What I wanted to offer today, I think the number one thing I wanted to point out is that grad division, our admission process is quite different from the undergrad admissions, because majority of the graduate admission decisions are actually made by the programs. That's why I would recommend students to first explore the graduate programs that you're interested, read everything that they put on the website, and get to know who is or may be the advisor that you wanted to go with your research. Because I'm currently a doctoral student in the College of Education, UH Manoa as well. I always tell my students that finding your advisor or professors is like a matchmaking process. You need to find the person that you wanted to work with. You guys have the very similar research interest, or you really wanted to just do or follow a particular professor's research project. It's very important for you to find the right person. And if you wanted to learn more about the individual graduate program, the best person to contact is usually the graduate chair of the program. Find the information, contact the graduate chair. I would encourage students to schedule a meeting with the graduate chair and try to talk to the person so that everything doesn't have to stay in the emails. So you need to talk to the people lively so that you know the people, that you know the department, and the graduate chair knows the best about the admissions and your qualifications and your research projects. And one last thing I wanted to offer here is that a lot of students are very focused on the deadlines for graduate admissions. Sometimes the students miss deadlines, but please do not hesitate to talk to the graduate chair and see if the graduate program is willing to give you an extension of your application. It's very, very common in the process of graduate admissions. So please pay attention and contact the right people. Thank you.
It's free for all. Anyone can go.
I'll go ahead. Hi, everyone. My name's Carol Johnson. I work at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies. We're very unique in this group of schools because we are just a graduate school. We're a professional graduate school. We don't have undergrad studies. We don't have PhD programs. And our master's degrees are really focused on practical experience and career preparation. Again, we're a professional graduate school. We're small. And so, we look at your application as you've selected our school as the right step to your career goals. And instead of asking for just a regular personal statement, we ask for career goals and objectives. because that is important to us. And we want to know that you've chosen this program, not just because you might like the content, but because you see that you're going to get the education and training and experience that will really help you get that dream job, that amazing career that you're thinking of. One of the things that I often tell students who aren't exactly sure of the specific master's degree that's the right step is to reverse engineer. Go look at all of our career outcome data on our website or career information on any school's website, and look at where you see, oh my gosh, I would love to have that job. I would love to work for that company or organization. That would be just amazing to work in that country or with that population, whatever. It's a good bet that that's the right master's degree that will prepare you for that kind of career. So think about that. I talk about essays and career goals and objectives essays. One of the things that I always recommend to students that I advise, don't hesitate to be creative. Tell us a story. I love it when I read a essay and it either makes me laugh or it's touching or it's super witty. And I end up knowing a story about them that when I'm done tells me they're a great fit for this program. And they've entertained me along the way, Also, make sure that there's no typos. Make sure if you mention the school name that the school name is spelled correctly. It's simple editing things. If you see someone who's misspelled a word or misspelled your school, that immediately brings the whole thing down a little bit as far as your excitement about that student. I'll pass it on to someone else with some other tips. I just wanted to mention that.
All right, hi, then I volunteered to go next. Thanks so much for being here. I'm excited. This is my first time doing this panel. I am a graduate chair in the Earth and Planetary Sciences program and also a professor at the Department of Earth Sciences. So I can bring in a perspective from the sciences, as has been already discussed in the previous section of the panel. So first of all, most of the graduate students in the sciences get paid for graduate school. And so it is really not just an interview and getting into grad school, but getting kind of a paid job as well. And so there is a lot of homework one has to do before even applying and deciding which school to go to, but then specifically whom they would like to work with. And so again, looking at from the perspective of career goals, many students already have an idea. They want to work in federal agencies or private industry, but some don't, and that's perfectly fine. They have a passion for science, so they apply to work or to study, to do a graduate degree in a program. But very importantly, one has to do the homework, and a lot of that information is on the website of the different programs. You should also reach out to a graduate program. Emails might be forwarded, for example, someone like me who is a graduate chair who can direct you to certain faculty who have expertise in the field you have expressed interest in, or you are actually very welcome to directly contact those professors and instructors yourself. I also give advice to the undergrads that I work with. So look around, ask around at your current program. Who do they know? What kind of science is done in different places? So do your homework in many different angles. And then, of course, in sciences, you have the option, as we discussed, of doing a master's or a PhD. A master's comes in two flavors. One is research-based, one is course-based. And then, of course, PhD, which is a little bit more of a research, a more longer-term commitment. Again, already now during or even before the application process, you should start thinking about that and have discussions. What is it that's right for you? A research experience is highly, highly recommended, especially if you're going for a PhD, although it's not a requirement. You just in some form and way have to show why you are committed to doing research and how do you see you would be a well-fitting individual for doing such work. And why it's important that you already have in mind what you want to work on and who you want to work with, because that matchmaking that Ivy already mentioned is happening at the early stage. You submit your application, we sort through that, we divide people into groups based on their interests, and then it goes down to the individual level of that future advisor who contacts you, who talks to you over the phone or Skype about your research interest. Take advantage of that interview. That's your opportunity to really inquire about the different possibilities, the projects that that advisor might have for you. It's two-way street. It's not just them seeing how you can think on your toes and whatnot and your skills, but you seeing how they work, what is their style of advising. So again, that's a very important process, and have questions prepared for that advisor when you talk to them over the phone or over Skype. And I guess just I want to mention that oftentimes for our students, they don't have to decide, well, they have to click whether they are taking pursuing a master's or PhD project, but actually it's quite flexible. That can be changed later on if they find that that's not the right way. So there's some flexibility. So don't freak out right away like, oh my God, I don't know whether I should go for a PhD if I have what it takes. Again, talk to people, maybe pick masters just to be on the safe side. Later on that can evolve into a PhD. So you're not put into a box just by clicking a checkbox. And so again, master's, PhD in earth sciences and other STEM fields opens so many doors for you. So just do your homework. What is the career you want to pursue, and start working on that already. Take advantage of all the resources you have with programs such as this panel and all your advisors. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name's Jose Barzola. I'm here with the Matsunaga Institute for Peace, which is part of the College of Social Science, which is at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. We are a department that offers classes in peace and conflict resolution. So we don't have a master's or PhD program. We have a graduate certificate in conflict resolution. And I start with that because sometimes if you don't, we get 3 areas of student populations, and one of them actually tends to be the students that haven't quite figured out what master's or PhD program they might want to pursue, or terminal degree, JD, MBAs, but they want to start definitely with graduate school, and they really like what we have to offer, and so they kind of get their feet wet with us, and then eventually they realize like, I really love this, and then we let them know that, hey, a lot of your classmates in your class are actually in other departments pursuing various terminal degrees, and so there's the great opportunity to kind of then take a step into a graduate or PhD program with already some graduate courses underneath your belt. So this is actually very helpful, especially there is that whole 3.0 GPA requirement for the most part, I think across the board to get into grad school. That's like one of the first things that's required. So if you have underneath a 3.0 GPA currently that you might be finishing up in your undergrad, one way around it is definitely taking classes unclassified, which means you're not officially applied into a program, but you can take like one graduate course, make sure you can focus your full attention to that, do amazing, get that A, keep that 4.0, do that for 2 semesters, because there is a rule where you can have up to 6 credits that are unclassified going toward a program. And so then you can utilize that. We had actually a student like that utilized that to then apply to our grad certificate and has done amazing. Since then, he actually simultaneously applied to a master's in public administration as well. So there is, and yeah, so it's a success story. So it is possible. Don't feel like, oh, I have below a 3.0 GPA and that kind of has determined the rest of my life. I can't go to grad school. It is still possible. I know there's a different financial section where you'll hear about financial opportunities. I want to mention graduate assistantships. A lot of students still till this day do not know that they exist. these, whether they're called teaching assistantships, research assistantships, they're opportunities for you to go to grad school for free. You work with a department or a faculty doing research or TAing for 20 hours a week, and then your tuition's waived completely. Going off of some of the other things mentioned briefly, recommendations. Make sure to get your letter of recommendation from somebody that can write you a good letter of recommendation. Just because someone agrees to give you a letter of recommendation does not necessarily mean it may be a good one, especially if it's a private one. So I highly encourage you to reach out to those people that you build a good relationship with. One of the big things we talk about in my office is about peace building, relationship building, and that's really what you're trying to do. I don't know if you all in the audience are just finishing up your undergrad, if maybe you're in your first, second year of college right now, so you're getting a head start. If that you are, even better, start getting those relationships built early as possible, especially if you already know where you want to go to grad school. In this remote environment that we've been living in over the past almost 2 years, there might be an opportunity for you to volunteer your time, do an internship or remote research for faculty, and who knows, at Yale, maybe that you really love what they're doing, or whoever it may be, that they're doing some great work right here at UH. Get that experience, get your name in one of the publications. I think that is going to be an amazing thing that really stands out in your application. And also, what better way to apply to a department where you already have a relationship with them, kind of get the ground running. You already know the people there. Also, some other things that I had heard about. Graduate chairs. Also get to know the staff in those departments, because graduate chairs change every 3 years. So it is possible you may get a grad chair on their first year, and they're just and they may be relatively new to the university too. So with all that in mind, getting to know this administrative staff within those departments, they have a lot of organizational knowledge. They're the consistent people that are there. So you may learn something that the grad chair may not even be aware of, such as something standardized might be possible to get waived if you get the right letter or approval or signature from somebody. These are just little tidbits that I've learned along the way. Going back to Carol's about stories, I think it's so powerful to be a storyteller. So it's not a research paper. You don't need to cite, this is your statement of intent, like, tell us a story. I imagine a lot of you have been raised by amazing storytellers in your communities. So what has been a story that has inspired you, kept you going forward, about overcoming or working towards social change, or whatever it may be that you're passionate about? Because that passion will seep through your application, and I think also in the relationships you build. So highly encourage that. And also, even if you happen to have your mindset on, yes, I want to do this research, and there's nobody in that department that may offer that, have that institutional knowledge, try to find a department that has that flexibility to support you in being able, faculty that will support you in, in providing you the guidance and the right resources at least. So I don't know, I think that's my time for now, but get back to Kay.
I wanted to, on top of all the wonderful tips that my panelists offered, and I wanted to mention 2 more things. Number one is that don't put your relatives or wife or your dad or your mom as one of your reference. It's really not professional, because once you're in grad school, you are a young professional. So you need to be professional. So don't put your relatives or close friends or parents on your reference list. Number 2 is, even you wanted to just explore the program, schedule a Zoom meeting with the grad chair, you wanted to look professional as well, because that can be your first interview. So you wanted to impress the professor or the grad chair with what you talk and what kind of story that you share. So it's also a very important part of your future grad school admissions.
All right, thank you all. So I think we're missing one panelist, which is fine. We can go ahead and move on to some Q&A for this particular topic, which was tips for applying to graduate school. So attendees, you can go ahead and type in your Q&A in the Q&A section. In the meantime, I just wanted to highlight some of the points that you guys mentioned that really stuck with me. I know you use the term matchmaking, and Ivy, I know you also mentioned about being professional. And so, when I work with students working on their graduate school applications, it really is like a job application. Treat it like that. And so be mindful of what you submit. I know some of you brought up GPA, the letters of recommendation. Make sure you be mindful about who you choose. And then also, right now, if you're in undergraduate, make sure you keep that GPA up, improve it, whatever it might be. And then the other was storytelling. I think that is really important, especially for those statement of purposes or personal statements. And then the relationship building, that is so important. We talk to our students about networking. And so it's very similar again to job search. You gotta network. It's all about the relationship building. Okay, well, looks like we have a Q&A. This is for Earth Sciences at UH Manoa. Is it required to have an internship or volunteer work in the area you're interested in studying? It's been really hard to get an internship during this pandemic.
I guess I can answer that live. No, so there is no prescribed research experience that you had or behind. So I would recommend to just try your best. And actually, despite of the pandemic, for example, our department has been running 2 different undergraduate research opportunities that happened remotely. Of course, these are small, like cater for 10, 20 students, obviously, but that's just one example. There are other programs that ran throughout the pandemic, but there are other ways to show your commitment. And specifically, we are in Hawaii, there are so many opportunities for you to volunteer, to work with communities. I'm thinking go volunteer the fish pond. I'm thinking there is the storm and wastewater division that takes on interns. And there are many opportunities, but just also research projects within your classes may count.
All right, does anyone want to add to that specific question? I think it's a pretty general question.
Yeah, I think Dr. Delay mentioned something like, that's I think the question presents a very good example why you need to contact the grad chair. You need to tell your story and tell your background so that they know how to guide you through the entire grad admission process. So there are different ways to present yourself. It doesn't, sometimes when we call internship, sometimes it can be a different thing, maybe a paper you wrote, right, for your undergrad degree, or maybe a very small research project that you ever participated, even in your high school. So there are different ways to present yourself. That's why you need to communicate very well with professors or with grad chairs.
All righty, so there are a couple more questions, and again, or actually more than a couple, but if other panelists, if you can also, if you want to type answers in, that's fine. I'll move on to the next question. What do you think about the combined bachelor's and master's degree, BAM pathways?
And I wanted to respond to that. We have a really unique program at our school that is a joint bachelor's master's degree. And instead of taking 6 years, 4 years for undergrad, 2 years for grad, you can complete your master's degree in 5 years. It is an accelerated bachelor's degree. So as long as you have your 2 years of associates or general ed, you come and complete your bachelor's here in international studies, and then you can jump right into your master's program. Now, this is a great fit for someone who knows what they want to do for their career or knows what master's program they want. They have that vision, they know what's ahead, they want to get there as quickly as possible. Usually they're more mature. A lot of times for us, sometimes veterans who have been out and done little bits of college around. Also, you need to be a really strong student because essentially that accelerated 1 year to complete your bachelor's you're studying with other grad students. You're on a graduate campus, so you have to be able to keep pace. But the beauty of it is you can go through so quickly, you save yourself a year, and you get to have your master's degree even sooner. And for the right student, it's an amazing opportunity. It's not a good fit for everybody, but for the right person. And of course, you save a year of tuition as well. So I think it's a great idea for the right student. And when I go to a community college, I always talk with the advisors and I give them an outline of, you know, this is the profile of the student who'd probably be a good fit. So they keep their eye out, because really all they need is the 2 years of general ed before they can be considered. Anyway, the other panelists may have other input.
Yeah, University of Hawaii in Manoa, we have BAM program. Yes, we do have this opportunity for our undergraduate students. On top of Kara's tips, I wanted to offer one more thing. Please keep in contact with your advisors. Make sure that you are on the right track of this kind of program, because sometimes you may need extra curriculum, extra classes to take. So make sure to contact your advisor and take the right classes. And I think that would be the best tip I can offer at this point.
All righty, so it looks like we have a pretty lengthy, or actually multiple questions. So we'll try to manage this. How do you find or locate grad programs abroad, specifically in wildlife conservation research with terrestrial mammals? And how do you find fellowships or assistantships abroad for your specific field? I guess I'm asking how you find grad school opportunities for people to talk about your future ideas or plans if you don't know any connections abroad. So it sounds like more of an international abroad type of question. How do you find out about projects you'd be interested in working in? I keep finding that sorting through online searches for legit opportunities is a challenge. So I see some other panelists also possibly responding through typing, but anyone want to try?
Yeah, I could jump in here briefly, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So this kind of goes, I think the question about locating programs abroad or conservation experiences, and then the question about internships earlier. I know it was very earth science related, but if anybody out there just has questions about internships in general, especially during this pandemic, everything's been remote, virtual. I highly recommend two things. Going back to that relationship you're building with different faculty, a lot of those faculty have relationships with other parties all over the world, all over the nation. Ask, what better way to get connected with an organization, with an opportunity than through somebody making that introduction already. Most likely you'll be a more reliable candidate for that position than somebody randomly just submitting an application. Also, nonprofits. Definitely look at the nonprofit world. There are multiple nonprofit organizations doing some amazing work. We have a requirement for our students to do internships, and when we shifted virtual, a lot of our connections with government agencies, because of all the bureaucracy, just did not translate into virtual or remote opportunities. But our nonprofit or community, they're wonderful, happy to have the support. And so it's not like we stopped our practicum or internship course during this pandemic. It's been ongoing. It's actually been very vivid, and students have had the opportunity to not only do internships right here on Oahu, but anywhere basically in the world that's willing to take them on. So I would say build on those relationships, those people, the faculty that you know, that you've met, word of mouth. I know there's a lot online, so just doing a Google search, although we would love to, you'll get bombarded with so much stuff and get lost in it. But I would say start with what you know. Start with your colleagues, your classmates, your family. They might know somebody in the field. You have somebody here, one of our panelists, who might know a little more about it. So I highly recommend to just look into all that. I guess someone already answered that other question. I was going to jump in briefly and just mention, as far as the situation with the PhD and then the master's, think outside the box. It is possible that maybe that department that you're striving for may be not the right fit. You might be able to still do that research that you're interested in through a different department. So think outside the box. Just because you go to like a specific school or through a specific department doesn't mean that you will end up at, this point in the end. There's multiple ways to this pathway. That's what I'm getting at. So definitely be open to thinking outside the box, and you may have to start somewhere else, and it's not even a different university, just a different department that might be able to offer that opportunity. Because also something to kind of keep in mind, different departments, depending upon what college they're in, will have a different process. Especially if you're in a PhD program, you do the classes, and then sometimes you'll have to do your qualifying exams. There's all these terminologies that I'm going to lose you with if I start utilizing them. But even the process of that, one example is some departments will be like, here's a computer, you're going into this room, you have all day to answer these 4 questions, and you can't go online, you're just regurgitating knowledge. While other departments will be like, here are your questions in an email, and you have 2 weeks, get it to us. So every department or every college works differently. Education, College of Social Science, Arts and Humanities. So it's okay. So just think outside the box. I mean, not everything is cookie cutter. So that's it.
I just want
All
to add
right.
one more thing on looking for international opportunities. If you don't know anyone, at least you have a current or previous professors, right, on your list. Talk to your own professor about what you want, because they have a professional network. They might know somebody who can help you with certain kind of opportunities. So your professors or even your high school teachers are very good resources for you to look for resources and opportunities. Thank you.
All righty, thank you. So good information. Again, for the attendees, please take a look at the answers. We have panelists that have typed in answers, so go ahead to the Q&A and you can see some answered questions as well. But due to time, we will move on to our next topic. We're featuring Hawaii Pacific University, again, Middlebury Institute of International Studies, UC San Diego School of Global Policy and Strategy, and the University of Hawaii at Manoa Graduate Division. And they will share information about financing your graduate degree.
Hello, everyone. I'll start. My name is Jasmine Kauhane. I'm with Hawaii Pacific University, working in the graduate admissions department. So we've heard so much great information on why graduate school, the tips on how to apply, but there's one thing that you should always remember is that it's great to put all of that effort into applying for graduate school and trying to get in, but you need to know how you're going to fund that graduate school should you get in. So this is really important. So our panel today is going to go over some of these tips for you, and I'll start off with the types of funding that may be available. And it's important to remember as well that each school is different. So something that I talk about in terms of TA or RA may not be necessarily the same for like UH Manoa as it is for Hawaii Pacific University. So we'll get into that. So we'll talk about employment work-based. So when you're looking at types of funding for employment work-based, typically this would come in the form of what's called a graduate assistantship, a teaching assistantship, a research assistantship, also work study. For those of you who may be our domestic students and utilize federal financial aid, then we have federal work study or student employment where you're able to work on campus. So that is one type of funding. And then you have merit funding. So merit funding can come in the forms of scholarships, whether they're internal or external, fellowships. So certain programs, whether they're PhD programs, I'm not too sure about master's programs, but they may have fellowships that are available, which are pretty highly sought out for specific fields. Merit will also maybe come in a grant, whether that be internal or external, or also just straight up awards. Sometimes certain programs, depending on what you're applying to, will just have awards from their college that are given. So that would be in terms of what's merit. Merit also meaning they may look at your professional experience. They may look at your academic experience as well. As we heard that typically, across the board for most graduate programs, we want to see that minimum 3.0 GPA. But again, you have to take into account that some students who are applying for master's degrees or doctorate programs may have been working professionally for the past 10 years. So that GPA that you got in your bachelor's degree may not necessarily hold as much weight as to what you are currently doing professionally right now. Then we have need-based funding. So need-based funding meaning obviously for a domestic student, you're experiencing it within your undergrad where you have to turn in your FAFSA, you put in your parents' information. And so as an adult or transitioning into graduate school, FAFSA still applies to pursuing a graduate program. So that would be something regarding your need, right? Need-based funding. Let's see here, student loans, obviously at the graduate level, if you are a domestic student, most of the time you're presented with, this is the type of loans that you can get federally to help pay for your education at a higher level. Now, that could be from the federal government, but then also personal loans or student loans from a bank and whatnot. So let's see here, we have our employment-based, our merit-based, our need-based funding, which includes student loans. We don't want to leave out our international students as well. Sometimes you would look at your own country. Some countries actually provide funding to their students to go study abroad. So studying in the US would be considered abroad for another country. So those are some things that you want to look at. Also, if you're currently working, you want to make sure that you look within. So that would be like a partnership type of funding for employment. I'll go back to that and, want to look at your HR benefits and see if maybe that there's some type of funding available through your employment that would help you and assist you through your graduate program. So I guess I'll just lead off before I switch over to our next panelist with examples of like HPU. So HPU, we have graduate assistantships, and the way that you are awarded is that everybody is considered. So there's questions on the application that you would select and say, yes, you're interested in a GA, or yes, you're interested in a merit scholarship. And we kind of look at the application holistically, and if a person is interested in that, and that's how we review. And each college, depending on what program you are applying to, would consider you for one of those awards. And basically what it means is if you're awarded a GA, you would work in turn for scholarship towards your tuition. If you're awarded a merit scholarship, there's no obligation. You're just awarded a merit scholarship. So like I said before, it really varies depending on what institution you're applying to and what type of program. So you'll want to also make sure you put a lot of effort in looking into what scholarship opportunities or funding opportunities are available before you apply, or at the same time as you're applying to your specific program.
All right. Any next panelists? Carol?
Yeah, I'll go next. I'm going to mention a little bit. I work for a private graduate school. Because we're private, our tuition is the same whether you're a US domestic student or an international student. And when you apply, you are considered for a merit scholarship, whether you're a US or international student. That does not change. The only thing that's really different for an international student is they don't have to complete a FAFSA application or our internal financial aid, because they're not going to get a federal US FAFSA student loan. But otherwise, all things are considered. And merit scholarships from a private institution are often quite significant. Our merit scholarships can go up to as much as 50% of tuition. And that makes a big impact, especially on a 2-year program. And we see students that get a total of $40,000 for a 2-year program. The other thing that we have, because we're a graduate school, we have partnerships with a lot of universities. If they're a really good feeder school, if they offer programs or majors that are very synergistic with what we offer. And for example, UH Manoa has the Second Language Studies department, and the students who complete the Second Language Studies major are a really good fit for our Masters in TESOL, Teaching English to Speakers of Other Languages, or our Masters in Teaching Foreign Language. And based on the coursework they complete there, they're eligible for our advanced entry, which means take a chunk of credits off from like 40 to 33 credits for your master's degree. And there's a guaranteed minimum merit scholarship involved because you already fit our profile. So if you're going to apply to grad school somewhere, look to see if maybe there's not a partnership between your school, UH Manoa, and that grad school. Another thing is external scholarships. We have a list on our website. I can share the link with you in the Q&A if somebody's interested. That's all the outside scholarships that we found out about. They're not recommended by us, and you need to really research and sift through, but you might be able to find multiple scholarships that you would be eligible for. I also just looked, there's a couple of scholarships that are specific to Hawaii. And also if you are Hawaiian, there are some scholarships available to you. Again, I will put those links in the chat, but do your homework. This is important. It might mean you apply to 2 or 3 different places, and maybe one place gives you 2,000 and another place, gives you 1,500. But it certainly helps. And it also shows the school you're applying for that you're serious about going there and that you're motivated in doing the work to try to fund your studies. The last thing I wanted to mention is there are some sponsored programs. For example, if you wanted to work for the Foreign Service, you wanted to be, work for the State Department or the Commercial Service, there's 2 organizations, Pickering and Wrangell. And they're both, if you apply to those schools and you're accepted and awarded, the school that you go to, the grad school, you'll pay no tuition and they give you some money for living expenses. But it means that you will work for the Foreign Service when you graduate. It's really their way of keeping a good funnel of qualified people coming into the State Department or Foreign Service. But I tell people, if there's any desire in you to work in a foreign service, go look at Pickering and Wrangell and apply, because that could mean you get grad school covered between what the school gives you and what Pickering gives you or Wrangell. And that's it for me on external scholarships or partner scholarships. I'll let my panelists take over, and I'll put some of those links in the Q&A for you.
Aloha, my name is Kristen Connors, and I'm the Fellowship Scholarships and Professional Development Coordinator in Graduate Division at UH Manoa. I'm going to share a brief overview of where you can find funding. So as Jasmine mentioned, funding models vary by institution, and I'll provide some general ideas of where you can look for funding, and then I'll end with some UH Manoa specific resources. So beginning at the institutional level, you may end up reaching out to the financial aid office, the graduate division or graduate school. If there's a fellowships or scholarships office, that's always a good resource. And as everyone's been mentioning today, definitely reach out to your individual graduate degree program. These offices usually house a comprehensive directory of opportunities where you can begin your search. Now, externally, so outside of an institution where you're applying, there are multiple resources to find financial support. A popular site that you might hear about is grants.gov. This is a centralized database of federally funded grant opportunities. When you're considering announcements on this site, though, you need to carefully look to see who is eligible to apply. Is it the faculty member? Is it the institution? Or is it you, the student, who can apply? A comprehensive public database specifically for graduate students is great. This is the graduate and postdoctoral educational support database. It was developed under the Council of Graduate Schools and is published by UCLA. If you're a resident of a state who participates in WICHE's Western Regional Graduate Program, you could receive a lower tuition rate as an out-of-state student. And then you can always go directly to individual websites of professional associations, nonprofit organizations, and federal agency programs. So some of the popular ones you may have heard about are NSF Graduate Research Fellowship Program. There's NOAA's Dr. Nancy Foster Scholarship and Margaret Davidson Fellowship. There's the Department of Defense SMART Scholarship Program, Ford Foundation Fellowship. Now, if you're an immigrant, a child of an immigrant, or of DACA status, there's the Paul and Daisy Soros Fellowships for New Americans. That's a good one to check out. If you're a McNair Scholar, many institutions offer some type of financial support. And then going back to a question that was asked earlier, if you're looking to study a graduate degree abroad, or if you're a foreign student looking to continue your education in the US, I definitely recommend checking out Fulbright. And then AAUW is another good resource to check at the national level as well as local chapters. Lastly, as an external resource, if you know any graduate students, look at their CVs because they'll list any of the awards that they've received, and those are ones you may want to consider as well. And if you don't know any graduate students, I would recommend checking the program website to see if there's a current list of students or alumni directory. Now, if you're considering applying to UH Manoa for graduate school, we would strongly encourage you to talk to your future faculty advisor, graduate chair, or academic department in general. Not only will they know of any funding opportunities that they are offering, including graduate assistantships, they can also share what other students in their programs have been awarded, or opportunities specifically related to your field, like wildlife conservation and specific to your research topic. I also recommend visiting our graduate division's financial support webpage. I'll be linking all of the sites I mentioned here today in the chat box. There are numerous resources there. You can feel free to contact me if you need help connecting to various resources. At UH Manoa, we also have the STAR Scholarship site, which is our centralized application site. This is where you can find scholarships and fellowships offered directly through UH Manoa. Finally, if you're not offered a graduate assistantship outright, please consider applying for a GA-ship at another department. These are coveted positions, and at UH Manoa, graduate assistants are offered stipend, tuition support, and are eligible to enroll in a health plan. We have teaching assistant positions, research assistant positions, and general graduate assistant positions. So I think I'll turn everything over to Caitlin next.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Venniclausen. I work with UC San Diego's School of Global Policy and Strategy. And I'm going to close up our session with some expectations, tips, and advice when you're applying and particularly seeking funding. So there were some great pieces of info and advice from my colleagues earlier in the session. Sponsoring organizations are a great place to look for funding. So if you have an idea of your career path, the direction you want to go, as Carol mentioned, with the Foreign Service Officers, Pickering and Wrangell are a wonderful opportunity. So a lot of government organizations will have scholarships attached. Oftentimes, private companies will have scholarships available. So if you're taking a year off between undergraduate and graduate, and you're looking at places to find employment and sort of have an inkling that graduate school is on the horizon for you, maybe ask about those benefits as you're interviewing or seeking out a position for employment. Consider the long-term plan. Partner institutions are also a good place to look for GPS in particular, and a number of schools that I know of in the international affairs and public policy sector. Groups like PPIA, Public Policy and International Affairs Program, is a nonprofit that particularly cultivates diversity in public service sectors. They have a junior summer institute that students may participate in. And for us, we waive the application fee and guarantee a certain amount of funding to students that are alumni of that program. I know a number of other institutions that work with PPIA also grant full ride opportunities for alumni of this program as well. So if you're participating in extracurricular activities, summer institutes,
Oh, Caitlin, I don't think we can hear you. I think maybe change the microphone.
Okay. So
there you go.
Consider asking for the program advisors if there's any scholarship opportunities that they know of in affiliation with that program that you're participating in. When you're looking at institutions, ask admissions representatives, program coordinators, how is funding sort of sourced in the school? As you know, you've heard from each of my colleagues, all of us have a little bit different method of funding that you can see throughout the institution and through the specific department. So familiarize yourself with those differences and understand that maybe you're going to be talking to one person about funding opportunities, and maybe you're going to be talking to multiple people if you're applying to a few departments at an institution. So consider that it might be centralized or decentralized financial aid opportunities. And always apply for your FAFSA. Use that as a backup. It's the same with undergraduate. Always make sure that you submit that application. And maybe you won't make use of the offers that are made to you, but if you're in that situation where you do need it, it's good to have that option. Make a timeline for yourself. If you're looking at external scholarships as well as application timelines, make sure that you're aware of when those submissions are due. Also, if you're offered scholarships, make sure you know when schools need to hear that response of, yes, I'm accepting this offer of admission and this offer of funding. For GPS, we're a part of the Council of Graduate Schools. So April 15 is the earliest deadline that you can see for that. But different schools will have different requirements for that. So make sure that you're clear on when they need to hear back from you about accepting that merit aid. So always ask. My final piece of advice, if you're unsure, if you don't know what's on the horizon, always ask. Admissions representatives, program coordinators, we're all here to help guide you in this process and make sure that this is the best opportunity for you. So ask if we know other resources for you, if we have partnerships with institutions or programs. We're happy to help point you in the right direction. So I'll finish up with just a little bit about GPS. We have departmental funding for international and international and domestic students. Our entire admitted pool is always considered for our departmental funds. We also select for a number of external scholarships. One of the more well-known one is maybe the Robertson Fellowship, which is a full ride plus stipend, and it comes with a work requirement for working in a federal government office after you graduate. There are a wealth of opportunities, and as I mentioned, we're happy to help you find them.
All righty, thank you. If I can ask Jasmine, HPU, if you can come back on, thank you. So we'll leave some time for any questions regarding financing your graduate degree. There's also some great links and resources that our panelists have been putting into the chat. So take a look at that. I also want to remind you that we will have a list or this list or we'll consolidate the list of Q&As and transcribe them and put them on our website as well. Alrighty, so why don't I go ahead and have all of the panelists for each topic start their videos. And we'll open it up. We have about a good 5 minutes left for any Q&A, any questions that our attendees may have. No questions, no Q&As. All righty. So the second part of the fair will be our virtual booths or our breakout sessions. This will consist of our individual schools or programs holding their own Zoom meetings to meet with potential students and share specifically about their programs. You can also ask some questions there. The Zoom booth information for all schools or programs have been sent to your email or will be sent to your email. And one of our MCC staff will also be posting a link in the chat, which provides you with a list of the Zoom links, their meeting IDs, and possibly passwords if needed. So enjoy your time in the breakout sessions, and please remember to meet with a career counselor for assistance with applying to any graduate program. Thank you very much. Thank you to our panelists, and thank you for all attendees.